Hello, this is Wyland with the FPV Podcast, where we talk about the FPV community and everything we do with our radio-controlled machines. Before we get into the show, I just want to very quickly touch upon our Patreon giveaway. This is a monthly giveaway that we're going to be doing for our Patreon supporters. So we're going to be giving away a lot of great products. So if you're interested in supporting the podcast and being entered into the giveaway, please go over to fpvpodcast.com. That's fpvpodcast.com. Thank you so much for supporting the FPV podcast. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's FPV podcast. Elvin refuses to stop bugging me about talking about microquads. So we got a pilot in who specializes in that, and that's what we're going to be talking about this week. So before we introduce our guests, Elvin, the Dallas Cowboys did not make it to the Super Bowl.
Why is he like, you gonna start some crap today, right? You and your damn Patriots. Yeah,
that's right.
Is what it is. I'm going to say it. Everybody hear me. It is what it is. You know how many times when I visit him, he says that like 15, 16 times. It's his excuse of outage. It is what it is. And then you can't say nothing. You just got to like, okay.
Learn from the best, baby. Learn from the best.
All right, but hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to talk about some micros and some other things that's been going on in the industries. And we got a good guy to talk, and he's got a lot of knowledge, and I want to get to this.
All right, sounds good, man. So he's been flying micros for a couple of years now. They definitely have been trending upwards, especially in the wintertime. So, Aaron, please introduce yourself.
I'm Aaron Bumpy, FPV Bigger, and I'm excited and passionate about the little guys, 3 inches and under, and especially lately 2.5. But that's what I do, and I race against everybody with it until we got somebody to race with. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Sounds
size
good,
don't
man.
matter, boys. Size don't matter.
I tell you what, I've seen some really fast sub 3 inches, and they can haul. But if you know how to use them, they're a little finicky, and they definitely take some concentration. But they are quick and they are nimble. So how'd you get into building micros? What brought you from 5-inch mini quads, which is what everybody builds, down to sub 3 inches, Aaron?
Yeah, well, I mean, like everybody, I started about 2.5, 3 years ago, and 5 inches what you flew. If you were racing, and that's what I did, that's what you flew. So I got it, and it was fine, it was good. And then I don't even remember where I saw my first 3-inch. I think it was on YouTube. Ockbots was flying his little 3-inch Hellbender from Ready Made RC, and it was kind of retarded looking at the time, and I was like. But he had a little GoPro on it and everything like that. And I was like, yeah, okay. That's kind of cool. So I got one, and I got it basically because Ready Made RC had a lifetime warranty on the frames. And at the time, I was really good about breaking frames. So I was like, I'm going to try this out. So I went through about 10 of those frames, and they warranted every single one of them. And because they're just as fast as a 5-inch, but there's less there. And, durability-wise. So anyway, that's where it kind of started. And I went back and forth between a 3-inch and a 5-inch. And then finally last year, it's just like, you know what? I'm going all in on the 3-inch. I'm going to stay with it for the multi-GP regional finals, regional series. And then I took it all the way to Reno. And it is not the quad that came up short in Reno. It was the pilot. I mean, just a little bit of bad luck. And just things going on. But, I mean, the quad is totally fast enough. And lately, with the better firmwares that we have, the props and motors and things, it got even better where I didn't feel like I was, going to at a disadvantage, when I'm racing the 5-inch guys. I say all that then about 3 months ago, I start with a 2.5-inch just to see if I can build them smaller and still handle and still feel like a big quad. And I was able to get a 2.5-inch to feel like my 3-inch. And that's what I always kind of wanted it to feel like, because my 3-inch felt like a 5-inch. And on the lap times, we'd test lap times, and I could do better with the 2.5-inch than I was doing with my 3-inch. And I said, okay, now it's time to make the jump. So I got rid of all my 3-inch, went all in on 2.5-inch, and started testing 2-inch, but it's not there yet.
No.
You can't get a ship light enough to make a 2-inch really work like you want it to yet. I think that will come, but not yet. So that's where I've been, and until we get a class, for the micro guys to race micro, I'm stuck racing against the 5-inch guys.
Oh man, that's kind of tough
really,
too.
That really sucks.
Yeah. So Elvin, okay, you've been building the small micros for, I don't know, several months now. What has your feelings been about it, just in general, before we get in depth?
Well, I mean, in general, I've experienced the same thing. It's like I'm always looking forward in the future for the next thing that's going to grasp the market. What's going to help. One of the things I've noticed is the things that's going to help the market is the fact that the less noise we make, the less interaction we have with people that don't like drones, right? So one of the things is when I'm flying at the park, if I can fly around on my 3-incher and just and be cruising and consistent flying and having a good time, and nobody really knows what's flying, they just hear wee every once in a while, wee, what is that, But when I'm flying the 5-inch, everybody gets, as soon as you hit the throttle, everybody, what the hell is that? And you flying across the field, and people get nervous because of the weight. So it's part sound, part. Once you get it recognized being in the air, people realize that the ship is larger, and it could come down and hit somebody or whatever. They might see the GoPro flashing or the run cam, whatever you're running, and go berserk. Because we've all run into that.
Definitely. So that is actually a very big benefit. So there are definitely some intrinsic value to going smaller, especially if you're going to be flying out in parks or in crowded areas. So before we get into actually, talking about benefits, Bumpy FPV, is that how you say it?
It is. And you know what? And I hate pilot names. I don't get it. I wish it was Elvon, I wish it was Way, and I wish it was Aaron. But, I mean, that's what everybody wants, so that's what we do. So, yeah, Bumpy is what everybody calls me.
All right, I'll just call you
track,
Aaron
so.
then. I always found that was a good name. I kind of like it, to be honest with you.
I like it, too.
Okay. Well, I got asked at the indoor race, at the cave race, well, there's got to be a good story to that. And I'm like, no, I was looking for a gamer tag, when I got my Xbox, and it gave me Bumpier Drake, and so I started flying FPV. You had to have one. I shortened it. That's it. But they all thought it would be, a great story that I bumped somebody out of a main or something. But no, unfortunately not.
Too bad. It's all right. Tell them that you were like, a god in video games, and everybody just called you Bumpy. Just make something up. It's great. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, you went to regional finals flying your 3-inches, and you got. I'm assuming you qualified in those regional finals to go to Reno, or did you go under the fast, try to qualify there?
Yeah, I got 5th in Atlanta with everybody else. Yep. So
wow.
I got to go directly. Yep.
Oh, that's nice. So regional finals, showing up with a 3-inch. Did you feel intimidated going to the regional finals doing that?
No, not intimidated. I wasn't going for the win because I know where my place is. As an average pilot, so I was going to do the best that I could do. I had tested with the 5-inch on the track. We had, at my home track, had that track set up for months. And I had tested 5-inch and tested the 3-inch. And speed difference for me personally, I wasn't faster with either one. Maybe a little more consistent with the 5-inch. But once I decided, you know what, I can't afford to keep going back and forth with batteries and props and things. I'm gonna build me a couple of 3-inch ships. I'm gonna ride that. That's what I'm excited about, right? And in 5-inch, it's fun, it's good. There's a place for it. It's not what I'm passionate and excited about. So once I got the 3-inch and went down there and could run with them, that was good enough, So yeah, when I got 5th, I was tickled, and that let me head to Reno.
Definitely. That's awesome. So when you're flying those 3 inches, obviously we're flying outside, right? So there's going to be some adversity when it comes to wind and also, prop wash from larger 5-inch quads. Does that adversely affect you when you're flying your 3 inches?
For me, honestly, people think, oh, there's a little bit of wind. You're at a disadvantage now. And in Atlanta, I think for that, it was about a 10 to 12 mile an hour wind. And I had tested a little bit in the wind. And as long as it's under 15 mile an hour, it's not a big deal. But if it gets over 15 to 20 mile an hour, which when we got to Reno, it was windier, and I did notice it. But if you're ready for it, if you practice for it, I don't think it's a big deal. Because, yes, I might get blown around a little bit more, but I'm hitting a gate that's the same size that a 5-inch is hitting, except for I'm a smaller ship, so it's a little bit easier. And it's a mental thing, right? So if you look at the size of a 3-inch, yes, it's smaller than a 5-inch, but when you compare it to a gate, it's not that big a difference. But in your mind, you're thinking you're just a little fly, and I can't miss, right? So mentally, it does help.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. So, Elvin, with you flying in parks with your little 3 inches, do you notice, when you're punching the throttle, on windy days, do you notice a difference between your 3 and your 5?
Well, okay, so like I'm one of these guys that I don't just go to the park with one ship and think that that's going to be the end of the flights for the day. I take a couple of ships, and I don't just take a couple of ships. I take a couple of ships and a couple of different props. I'm a tactician about what I'm flying in. I like to think about if there's lots of wind, I need low profile props. I need thin bladed props so I can cut through the air easier. And when I'm turning, I'm not affected by the wind as much. So that's why, like, there's times when I'm flying these props or these props, you see. Then this prop is gonna get less affected by the wind, but I'm gonna be able to fly straighter. I'm not gonna have the same pull that I have with the 2.5s on it, but I'm still gonna be able to fly and be not affected by the wind as much.
Okay, sounds good. How about you, Bumpy or Aaron? Is like, do you change between props, depending on the weather and stuff?
Sorry, that's my clock going off to letting us know it's 9 o'clock here where I am.
9 o'clock.
Yeah, so honestly, what we've noticed with the micros, if it's over about a 15 mile an hour wind, that's when you start noticing lining up for gates. We switch to an 850. So we'll run an 850. We're running 3-cell. That's the limit we put on locally because we didn't feel like 2-cell was really, the guys coming from 5-inch didn't think it was fast enough to really make it a kick in the pants. So we went with 3. And yeah, typically run a 550 to make a 2-minute race. And then if it's windy and I need to really lock it in and keep it from getting bumped around, instead of changing props, we've been changing to a heavier battery. And in the corners, you feel it a little bit, but man, does it line up for gates so much better when you just that little bit more weight, which, about 20 grams more. But it's a big difference when you're talking, 2.5 inch.
Okay, that's actually a really good idea. So you're really counteracting, the wind's aggressiveness to push you by adding a little bit more weight. So it kind of stabilizes you a little bit.
Yeah, and when you're trying to huck that thing over a tree, or if you're at the park, you want that heavier battery because you want that momentum to carry you up over the tree. I mean, yeah, you use the weight as an advantage, whether you're freestyle park flying, which I love to do at parks. It's just like Elvin was saying, the little ones, I mean, people don't say anything. Oh, that's cute. Everybody says cute. Anything under 3 inches is cute. Anything bigger than that is a flying weed eater, and they're scared of it,
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. That's a huge advantage of the small ones.
All right. So talk to me about going to Reno. So, all the big names are there. Everybody's going to be there showing off their wares. And then you show up with a little 2.5, 3-inch guy. I mean, like, did people give you a hard time all the way through?
Well, I thought I was going to be the only one. And there was one other guy there that went out before me, and I cannot think of his name, but it was a well-known pilot. He went out and flew his 3-inch, and everybody's like, So he kind of stole my thunder, right? And they're like, "Oh, you're flying 3-inch," and I was like, "Ugh." And so then he goes out with his 5-inch, and he didn't do nearly as well. But the Reno track was not a big track, and when I got there and saw it, saw the enclosure, saw what we had to deal with, and how tight it was, I thought, "Oh man, this is a 3-inch track here," because at least it wasn't going to be a wide open speedway. Mm-hmm. And probably because I thought that, I got overexcited, and I had so many issues with video and this, that, whatever. It just didn't work out for me. But this other pilot that stole my thunder that went out there, he switched back and forth, and if he would have just stuck with 3-inch, he'd have done well. So it wasn't the quad. I wasn't intimidated, only because I wasn't going to fly any faster, slower, whether I had a 3-inch or 5. But yeah, absolutely. When I go to the start line and I set it down, and they look at me, they're just like, "This guy, what's he doing?"
Yeah, like, how did he get here? How the hell did he get here?
Right. And if I fly well, no pressure, right? But if I fly well, all of a sudden, this guy might know something, right? But if I don't, well, that we knew that, is how they look at it. So, yeah.
Now, the reason why we have Aaron on is because Aaron actually came to one of our local races indoors, and micros actually are very popular around here, mostly because it's a small track and it's easier to fit through a gate. It's also a lot more nimbler, in my opinion, especially if you keep the weight down. So we've noticed, we've had some pilots come through 3-inch, 2-inch, and they are killing it, and they can actually easily outdo a 5-inch quad. So I don't think there's actually a physical disadvantage. I think it comes down to the pilot and whether or not he's going to be happy trying to handle a 3-inch quad as opposed to a 5-inch quad, because I think you would agree, Aaron, that they fundamentally fly differently. So switching back and forth is actually going to hurt you in the long run. You really have to stick with one or the other.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the biggest difference, the 5-inch floats. So all that big prop area, right? It doesn't fall. So when you have like hurdles and things like that on a track or a dive gate, it doesn't fall like a 3-inch drops like a brick, and I like that. We don't have brakes to slow down, right? So you're having to find creative ways to decrease the speed of the quad. And so that's one of the things I liked initially about the 3-inch over the 5 is when I'm trying to dive, when I'm trying to make it come down, as the tracks become more 3D and less two-dimensional like a car track, I felt like it was more of an advantage to have a heavier, smaller prop quad that would drop. Now, obviously, different tracks, favor different things, but yeah, absolutely, they fly differently, and you either like it or you don't. And then that's one thing. Hopefully, in the future, as guys get really good and there's not the constant changes with 5-inch, they'll have the micros as a secondary class, and they'll have a skill set to fly the micro and a skill set to fly the 5-inch quads, the unlimited class or whatever it is called now.
The funny thing is that had I not flown a 3-inch quad, I'd be like, a 5-inch floats? There's no way, because we're used to 5 inches. Like you don't perceive floating when you just fly 5-inch quads. They feel really good to you. But when you have a 3-inch quad, because I let a buddy of mine let me fly a few packs on his, you do drop when you're not on the throttle, because there's literally nothing keeping you up except sheer KVs. So when you go between the two, you're like, oh wow, yeah, like a 3-inch, if you fly a lot of that, and then you go to a 5-inch, it does feel a little bit. I don't know if a 5-inch you can consider a 5-inch floaty, but you can feel the float. You can feel the what do you call it? There's a leeway in which you can actually catch yourself, because you're flying low to the ground with 3-inch. If you're not on it, you will be on the ground.
There's maximum prop Q. Maximum prop Q. Is that what it is?
I don't know. Elvin, what are your opinions on that?
I totally agree with Aaron on that. It's when you see, I can go back a little further back. With I got my Diatone 150 at Nationals 2015, and I came home with it. I put it together, and I flew it around, and it was really competitive at the time with a lot of 5-inchers. And then something happened, and like the motors got bigger, they got more powerful. We went from the 20, like the Cobra 2204, which was actually a 2205 motor, to like the red bottoms and the other motors, where we increased the power ratio from like 250 watts to almost 400 watts per motor, right? So that was a big jump. And then it's like the 3-inch kind of just sagged right there. We had 1804 motors. 1806 motors. That was the biggest you could put on a 3-inch at the time, or that we thought. And then slowly after that, they then came out some 1306s, which was a little smaller. We could go to a little smaller frame, and that's where the Rotor X frame. What is that? The Atom. Right. When the Atom came out, and that was 122 millimeters. So that was the first 3-inch that was in that category. And like Aaron was talking about, the Hellbender, which is another 122 millimeter ship. Those two ships were very competitive at the time, but as 5-inch motors got bigger, stronger, we got better ESCs. The ships ran better. They just kind of left the 3-inch department. Well, now things have changed. Things have gotten way better for the 3-inch guys. We got 4-in-1 20 millimeter by 20 millimeter stacks. We got VTXs 20 millimeter. We're reducing rate drastically. Like your core package used to weigh probably 75, 80 grams, and now you can get a VTX, an ESC pack, and a flight controller for like 50 grams. That's a big difference for a 122 millimeter quad or 140 millimeter quad, because that's where the 2.5-inch is. It's dangerous at that size, and then when you go a little bit bigger. Are we losing Aaron?
Yeah, there he is. Keep going.
Okay. Anyway, so so really what it is things have gotten way better. We've gotten better motors. We got better speed controllers. We got smaller stuff. We got better frames. And the biggest issue really is the props. I think the 2.5-inch props out now is the biggest advantage that we have right now.
There's definitely a lot of advantages right now, and there has been a lot of advancements in building smaller and smaller components for your smaller and smaller quads. It's actually quite amazing. Elvin was telling me we need to get Aaron on. We need to talk about microquads. So I started researching, and it's like, you know what? I kind of been sleeping on the micros, because like the component selection has been it's really good, actually. I didn't realize it until you actually start looking and you realize, you know what, there's actually a lot to select from, and there are plenty of frames out there. And I am actually very surprised of the motor selection, because I remember when we were looking at the first 3-inch quad that we were going to build, there were like 2 motors out there that you can do, and they were like, I think maybe 3,000 kV. Now it's like 5,000, and you just go straight up, and it's amazing what you can do with these things now. Yep. So let's go ahead and dive right into, like building these things, the advantages of them, and there is disadvantages to them. So, it's not all peaches and creams or rainbows and sunshine. There are some disadvantages. So let's go ahead and go with you, Aaron. Like, what is your ideal, or, what's your current setup, or what is your ideal setup?
All right. So I'm always messing with frames and motors and just trying to see what works. And for me, I really prefer more of a True X design, like the X Hover. It's not True X, but it's closer than like the Atmospherics Adventure. That's a stretch. They just slalom and everything better to me, and they're very neutral feeling, so I really like that feel. But for me, a 2.5-inch setup with the 1106 motors. Emaxes are a really good motor, but I know there's some new motors that are out that are probably better. but they work good. And another thing, talking about components, the obviously like the micro run cam, all the micro, when those came out this year, that was huge for us micro guys, right? The 20 by 20 stacks, like the Emax stack for $45, which is an F3, flight controller with a 12 amp, 15 amp burst 4-in-1. That's kind of the setup. I've tried the HGL RC, because they're like 28, 30 amps, stuff like that, and they work fine too. They're just a little bit more expensive, but where I'm at right now, and it seems to be the sweet spot for the technology, is a 2.5 inch. Really, there's 2 props to run. I've tried them all, and the GymFan 2540s, and then what is that new prop that we got? The HQs, the new HQ prop. It feels quite a bit different than the GymFan, but it seems to be real durable as long as it's not cold, even though they're PC props. But good. So that's my preferred setup. Anything around for a 2.5 inch, anything around 85 grams ish, give or take a few grams, is going to fly well on a 75 kV, 7500 kV setup. 2S works really well, and then the 6000 kV comes with the Baby Hawk R, a 3-cell, works really good. I like a little bit lighter battery, like I was saying earlier, a 550. But some of our pro guys that got them just to run the indoor are running these huge 850 batteries, and you think, oh, that thing's heavy, but I mean, they don't lift off the throttle, and they can't use a smaller battery because they sag, and they do not want them to sag.
Right.
And as the technology's gotten better in the last few months, and the faster guys are trying them for something to do in the wintertime, and surprised by how good they are. And wow, these are actually fun. And it's just it's all blue skies from here, I think.
Blue skies. All right, Elvin, what's your preferred setup?
Well, I can tell you that right now my preferred setup is for the same thing Aaron is running, Emax stack with the HG LRC VTX on top of it. Running what do you call it? An Axie 2 and antenna off the back. I got this frame too, same frame he's got. Right now I'm running it as a 2-inch ship, and running it on 4S, and I run 4S 650s, and it's as fast as a 5-inch.
Yeah,
believe me. It like, if you think you're gonna outrun this, you're sadly mistaken. Like, I'm gonna come up behind you and go, okay, wait, I'm just waiting for you to make your mistake, and when you do, I'm gonna leave you behind. You ain't gonna never catch up, because it's just as fast as a 5-inch. And that's what I really like that. And like Aaron was talking about, the fact that the Emax stack puts out 15 amps. The 1106 motors, they don't ask for more than that. On 4S, I'm looking at 8 amps draw from per motor, and it's phenomenal. So, and if I want to run the 2.5s, I have my twin quad frames, Freestyle, the Gemini, outfitted with 2.5-inch props on 4S, and I run that too. But most of the time I have profile set up for 4S and a profile set up for 3S. And most of the time I'm running around the park with that same ship on the 3S settings and the profile 2. And most people can't tell, but until I open it all the way up, then you can, you go, what the hell is that? That thing sounds like a demon, and then, those are my 2 small ships. And then I got this thing. This thing is just like, I didn't know that a 3-inch could go so damn fast. I mean, I was just like, these are these new iFlight Force 16 millimeter by 6 millimeter motors, 390 watts per motor on 4S. it's phenomenal. I mean, it's like I literally took my goggles off the other day and had to wipe a tear out of my eye because I was going too fast. I was like,
Can
whoa.
you tell that Elvin's a speed demon? Can you tell? Because like he just can't just let go of the fact that he needs to put something on 4-cell. I mean, like I'm pretty happy putting a 2-cell on there and just putting around. He's like, no, we need to double that and go fast.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to be quiet. It's like, you're going to be quiet running a 4-cell in the park. Okay, Elvin, I believe you.
Well, that's why I have two profiles. I have my 3S profile for cruising around the city parks. And because here in Portland, you're not supposed to fly in the city, right? But if you can get away with flying in some places, the less noise you make and the less, people go, oh, look at this. This is, if you don't make no noise, you can fly all over the place. Like there's a couple of golf courses I fly. I never film it, but I fly to golf courses because they're open area and nobody cares as long as you're not, nobody cares. You just go by and people go, oh, dude, look, that's cute. Look at that. That's cool. Hey, man, can I see? And then, people at golf courses got money.
That's why you shouldn't hit anybody at the golf course. Just saying. Just be careful where you fly your toys, okay? So, all right, let's get back on subject. Obviously, you guys have very similar builds, so let's go ahead and start breaking down some of the components. Let's start from the inside, and we'll go out. So, the Emax stack, both of you are big fans of that. So, Aaron, give me your opinion about the Emax stack. What makes it so ideal for your builds, and why people should start there?
Yeah, I mean, the price point, really. I mean, $45, and that's got your stack, right? The only thing I wish, I contacted Emax to ask them if you could buy the components separately, and they never have them in stock. So I don't know that that's even an option. But when you start looking at like the HGLRC, they're like $35 for the 4-in-1 and $30 or $35 for the FC, so you can buy them separate. But it's just so easy when you start looking at it. It's only $15 more. You buy the whole thing. You just slap it in there. And I've had really good luck. I've gone through a few of them, but it was my fault in a crash. I've never had one burned out because I burned out an ESC from pulling too many amps or whatever. I fly 4S. I can't find a 4S pack, a micro pack around 550. I can't puff. So that's why I don't fly it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, but that stack is great. It's economical. It works well. Betaflight, all you got to do when you put Betaflight on it is detune the PIDs a little bit. And what I mean by that is, the standard PIDs, what D-term is like at 30 or 32, something like that. And that's a little bit high for a 3 or 4S. It's going to oscillate. So you knock them down to 20-ish for a place to start. And that's a great place to start without having bad oscillations. But anyway, yeah, that's the stack that I like to go with, yeah.
Okay, so the stack, it's the ESC PDB flight controller. Does it have the VTX as well?
No, it's separate. And I use anything small. I use a VTX 03 just because it's small and it seems to work really well. But yeah, depending on your frame, any small VTX you can fit in there works fine.
Okay, sounds good. So, what has your experience with the stack there, Elvon? Why is this your preferred choice besides price? It's probably because of price, actually.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's what it is. I'm a firm believer if you know that you don't need 25 amp speed controller, there's no reason to put it there. You know what I mean? You save that for something that may need it. You know what I mean? There's other motors out there that are capable of pulling that. And if you want to build that ship, then build that ship. I'm not a firm. The only reason why I put 35 amp speed controllers on 5-inch is because my motors can pull 35 amps. You know what I mean? It's not that I'm pulling 15s. It's the opportunity that I can get there, and I may need it. It's that's it.
Okay, so VTX of choice, what's yours? Is it the same one?
I would. Well, I'm using the HG LRC VTX. It works well. It's not smart audio hookup, so I'm not really a big fan of that whole action. I am trying out other VTXs as we speak. I got a Wolf Whoop Q7 in the mail a couple days ago, and I'm not really a fan of it. The TX03, I do have one of those. It works. You know, you put the right antenna on it, it works. Just make sure it's not bobbing around inside the frame and touching stuff. As soon as it does, boom, it's gone. That I can tell you. It's not one for making mistakes. Like some of the other stuff can handle being tossed around and bumped around a little bit and mistreated, but it doesn't seem to be one of those VTXs. I know somebody that's gone through 4 of them. So, and he says, they're just so cheap, I just buy 5, because they're only like $13-14 a piece or something like that. You can get them offline. But and then I know guys that are running unifies in their small ships. So it just depends on what you can get inside the ship and make it safe for ship operation. Because I have, like he said, I've destroyed a stack. There's pictures of mine on Instagram on fire. You know what I mean? I went down, I turned around, and I'm like, I'm like looking in the goggles and I'm seeing smoke. I'm like, what the hell is, oh crap. And I start running, and before I could get to the ship, it was poof. And when I picked it up, that's when all the parts slid off the board and the power, and then the signal went out. Gone. Because everything was that hot.
And there it goes. Yeah. Plus, TBS also just came out with a new micro Unify too. So
yes, it did.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add to that, Aaron?
Well, I mean, I was just going to say, we talk about technology and the components and things like that. We're still getting smaller. All our components are still getting smaller, and so, like right now, kind of that smallest good quad is a 2.5 inch, and who's to say what in a year it will be? And to me, that's the excitement of the micros. These things fly so well, and they're so little. And yeah, it just opens up the possibilities for where you can fly. And the people, it all comes down to what people say about it. As far as, a lot of people like to ruffle feathers. I don't. I want to go in, get the job done and get out of there. If I'm part flying, if I'm, racing, like our indoor, we're doing an indoor series here in Middle Tennessee, and we can go in with limited setup, limited netting and things like that with these little micros, and we're fine. Versus when you start going to the bigger ones and heavier ones, you got mass and everything like that. It's more time to set up, more money to set up, and so as long as technology keeps getting smaller and cheaper, and I'm excited.
No, I agree with you, because one of the points that we're definitely going to be discussing really soon is cost savings and also the ability to fly in smaller areas. But haven't gotten to that yet, but definitely. I remember it's probably less than a year and a half ago where people were still trying to get under 250 grams because they're trying to get under the FAA limit. Now it's like easy. Boom. It's like no problems. Just you're there. And it's like, it's so amazing. I didn't think it was possible, but that proves how much we know. Things are still getting smaller. All right. Yep. Both of you run cam micros. Is that what you're using?
Cadex F1s and S1s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I bought a Cadex based on y'all talking about them several weeks ago, and I haven't put it in a ship yet. But I got one because it was $20, and I'm like, how could why not, right?
Yeah,
so I've got one to test, but until I run out of run cam micros, and I still run version 1 because I don't need the OSD because it's on the flight controller. So I run the $5 cheaper one.
The $5 cheaper one. Hey, you know what? $5 is a lot when you have to keep
rebuilding. It adds up, right?
Yeah, everything adds up. So I will tell you, like we don't talk about it much, but the cameras getting smaller has been a definite benefit. It's been really nice, and I haven't felt like we lost any quality when it got smaller. I think they're just as good or better.
I would say better. Like I was flying my mini Drac today, and I was switching back and forth from this little ship has got the Cadex and the run cam Swift, and I was going. The picture is like over here is brighter, yes, but as for what I'm seeing, it's like I'm not missing anything, and I'm not. I noticed I was seeing stuff closer, like further out. Like I started to see the scraggle. That's what y'all call that too. The naked tree branches. We call it scraggle up here, ghost branches. Anyway, we're all like, I could see them further out, and things were clearer and sharper. So it might be a little bit better, you know. I mean, the newer cameras, the new smaller cameras, but I don't have the new Run Cam 2 or the Arrow 2. And there's supposed to be some little one, right? That's a beast now. That's
the Predator.
Yeah, the Predator. That's the one. Anyway, but I don't have those, you know. But I'll take one. Anybody want to send them? You know, send them on up. I'll check them out for you.
Oh dear, he's already wanting more free stuff. All right. Another advancement that really definitely saves weights is antennas have definitely gotten smaller as well, and people have been printing some awfully good 3D antenna holders. And, you know, they hold them nice and tight to those micros, like Tim JC over in CQS Cincinnati Quad Racers. When you buy his frame, he actually prints you a 3D part that will hold the antenna in one spot so that if you crash, it won't vibrate, hit a prop, and destroy your antenna. So that's really kind of cool. I think go ahead.
And have you seen the new Furious FPV antennas that's coming out? Those little tiny pagoda-looking ones. You haven't seen those? They're due out any day. It says end of January.
They're in a little rubber case, basically.
Have you seen them?
Yeah.
Like the Axie used to be the standard for the small tiny antenna, and now this thing is like, you'll have to go look it up on their website and see it, and it's supposedly amazing. But for micros, because like right now the default is to run a dipole antenna. It's cheap, it's light. Exactly. But now with this antenna, it looks like it's going to be a game changer just because we're even smaller, and now we got a right hand, left hand polarization that before. I too run the Axie, and it's always hard to try to get it on there some way. Or if you go to an event, you got to be able to switch it, and you're using UFL connectors. You got that whole thing. So, and that gets back to the thing. I mean, technology, we don't think it can get any smaller and cheaper and more economical, whatever. But it continues to do that, and that just opens so many doors for us.
Okay. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. All right, let's get on to probably the last part that I'm going to talk about, which is the motors, which is like what everybody spends their money on. Don't lie. All of you spend so much money on those motors. So let's talk about 2S, 3S, and 4S, because obviously all the micros can run on those. Give me, I think I'm going to leave Elvin out of this because he doesn't run 2S. He doesn't know anything about that. So Aaron, 2S.
Okay, yeah. So for the Louisville race a couple weeks ago, when I was with Jaws and Nurk, and Nurk and I were racing for the transfer spot, we were tied for third. So I was running 2S GMB packs. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but for micro batteries, it is really hard to beat a GMB pack. So if you haven't tried them, try them, and then I think you'll know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I was running 2S 7500 1106 motors, and I was not using the whole throttle. I couldn't and fly comfortably. And I was flying against Nurk with his 5-inch GoPro, all that stuff like that, and we were having a nice little battle there until I crashed out. So, and like I said, I wasn't flying it to full capacity. That's an indoor track. That was a tight track. Mm-hmm. Outdoor, I like to throw the 3S on a 7500. Won't do 4S without smoking something on those KVs. I've tried the 4-cell. What were they, 450s, and I puff them like crazy on a 6,000 kV. So I just don't. I run 3S. So yeah, yes, you can run 4S, right? Mm-hmm. But on a track, and I'm all about what it does on the track and lap times and all that stuff like that. There's not a battery yet that I've found that the weight, the size, and it won't puff or sag. And that's the biggest thing with the GMBs. They do not sag. If you sag a GMB, I don't know what you're running. You know, I mean, I'm talking about on a 2.5, because every other one, I'm not going to name manufacturers, but I've tried everybody else's micro batteries, and I puff them or sag them, and I'm like, this stinks. But when I found the GMBs and I could run like it's supposed to run, wide open, no sag, and not puff them, and my internal resistance after 60 plus cycles is still exactly the same, now I can get on board with a $12, $15 battery pack that I'm not destroying, and I can hammer it. I mean, that's exciting.
That is very exciting. All right, Elvon, what's your favorite motor of choice and cell of choice?
Well, I have the Emax 1106 motor, 6,000 kVs, and I also have the iFlight 1106s, and they perform almost exactly the same. Like, there's like, I can't tell you the difference between the two. You know, like, I can't. You know, I would have to put them on a bench and test them, run a test on them, and I may do that if somebody send me one of each to burn up. I will do it because I'm interested in seeing what it'll take to pop them. But and then I'll know how hard I can drive what I got. Anyway, but you know, those two motors I find are really close in being compared. The only difference is the Emax motors are like $10 more. That's the difference. You know, they say Emax on them.
Mm-hmm.
And they come. The ones I had came with extra little clips. You know, so the iFlight ones didn't come with that. You know, they came with screws, but they didn't come with clips. And fortunately, they were the right size screws too. So that was another thing that kind of was a bonus because I didn't have to go looking for them. But other than that, I think those are for a 2.5 incher, 1106 Emax motors are good motors. I hear Brother Hobby just came out with some motors that are comparable. It's supposed to be Pyrodrone is coming out with some motors in that same ballpark or category. 1106 or 1107. I hear there is an 1107 out there somewhere. I don't know who it is. It's either 1107 or 1108. I can't remember, but it's in that ballpark. But either motor, you know, KV dictates how big a battery you can run. You know, if you want to run a little heavier battery with higher KV, which means you're going to have insane acceleration. You may not have the top end that the guys with the lower KV, because there seems to be, as you go lower with the KV, you have more prop options. And with the higher KV, you're kind of limited because you can overamp your motors. But that's how I see it. You know, 6,000 KV works great. 7,500 2S, 6,000 3S, you know, 4S capabilities, and supposedly there's some 5,000s out there. You know, I guess you would run 4-bladed props on it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, and too, it depends. If you're wanting to build a multi-GP microclass spec, which is right now at least is a 2S max, you're looking at a 2.5-inch prop max, a 2-cell max. So you're gonna be running a 75 8,000 kV to compete in that class. So it depends what you're trying to do. But also, it really strangely enough, that also they spec a 30 by 30 inch gate for that class. Which who wants to hit a gate that small doing 60, 70 mile an hour? I don't know. I hope they revisit that, especially now that they've kind of revisited, the open class and what that's going to look like this year. Maybe they'll look at the micro class and make some changes. But like you said, the 6,000 kV, that is a sweet motor kind of to do all cell counts and have a good time with it and not kill your stuff.
Yep, yeah, definitely. I think that class is meant for like tiny whoops, not Not what you're building, because you would absolutely murder a tiny whoop.
Well, right, no, there actually is. If you look on their website, and they had one at the I/O. They actually had a class of them where, because I didn't get to make it, but that was very interesting. That they had one track that you had to have 2.5 inch or under, and there's several YouTube videos out there. The guys were on there all on 2S. But if you go watch any of those videos on YouTube and you look at the oscillations in the corners and you look at the poor handling compared to what we have now, and that was 6 months ago,
right,
compared to the handling and the motors and bad stuff we had now, it's night and day difference. But that just shows you kind of where it all kind of started and then where we are now. And then by, I don't know, a couple more months, it's going to be, with the new Betaflight 3.3, I don't know if you're hearing what the new filtering is going to do. But, if you know anything about that, that's going to take us to another level.
Yeah.
Betaflight magic sauce. That's all I call it. You know, it's like pretty soon it's like tuning. What's that? That's like a little lever. You just say up, down, or something like that.
Right.
Hey, man, I remember a while back, man, we were supposed to have auto-tune. Remember that? We had it.
We're getting
for a
close
while.
now, though. We're getting close. We're getting very close with these filters.
Listen, I remember somebody telling me, I asked this question. If I take my quad and turn the throttle on, put it at half throttle, and I shake my quad forward, and shake my quad back, and shake it to the left, and shake it to the right, and then rock it back and forth like that, it should know. And we're almost there. We're almost there.
Yep, it won't be long.
No.
Won't be long.
And processors are getting faster. Pretty soon we'll be able to do some really awesome algorithm. Okay, anyways, that's a different story. Okay, that's for like true nerds that actually know that should be paid way more than what they're probably getting paid right now. But okay, we talked about all the components.
There's a lot of those guys in this field. A lot of those guys.
Very true. You guys need to find like NASA jobs or something, because I'm sure they'll hire you. Anyways, obviously, building micro quads can be a bit of a challenge because everything's so small. Any do's and don'ts you want to share for anybody who's, going to try to build their first sub 3-inch quads? Like, Aaron, what do you got for like do's and don'ts?
Okay, so the reason I like micro quads is because I'm a tinker. I love to tinker. Every little thing, I look at how can I make it better, faster, whatever. If that's you, build it by the components and specs that we've been talking about. If that's not you, go buy an Emax Babyhawk R and start there. It's a great place to start. And then when you break it, we got a lot of guys running them. They're real durable. That's a really good, ready to fly, slap your receiver in it and go option. But yes, they are small. They are tedious. They're harder to solder, but they're so worth it. I mean, you can't always fly a 5-inch. It's not always best to fly a 2.5 inch. But I mean, we're in the winter right now, and now a lot of these guys will be putting these things away in a month or two when it warms up and they go outside. But not me. I'm going to be right there with it and with the 5-inch guys. And I'm still pushing for somebody. Somebody please have a 2.5 inch or a micro class national championship somewhere, because there are a lot of guys that race them. And if we could ever get them all together, that'd be a lot of fun indoor event for all these little, micros rip around to see who's the baddest of the baddest.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, what about you? Do's and don'ts, Elvon, for building one of these?
Well, I would say, listen, first thing I want to say this is because I make this mistake occasionally. Use Loctite.
Are you serious? You still doing that?
Oh, dude, I tell you, man, there's times like, you sit down, you swap motors, you change motors, and you go, did I put Loctite now? Did I put? And then there's times when you take them all out and you redo them, right? And then there's that time that you've done that the third or the fourth time, and you're like, I put Loctite on that son of a bitch. And then you get out in the field and you're flying around, and all of a sudden you go, the quad just starts rolling over on you, and you go, oh,
missed one.
And usually that's the time that you kill the motor on the crash, because these motors are really small, so they can't take a lot of pull on them from the motor. You know, like a 2205, the wire's a little bit bigger, the threads, the windings are a lot thicker. You know, so it might take a little bit more effort to pop one. You know what I mean? But these things, they're like 36 AWG. You know, that's really, really small, and they have nothing. They have the tensile strength of like your hair. You know, pop, and you're done. You know, so I would say use Loctite and you know, be careful. You know, I mean, take your time. You know, it's one of those things. I'm gonna tell you one of the things I'll reach over and grab it, and you might laugh at me, but I don't care. These right here, boys.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
gonna laugh
I'm
at you,
sorry,
Grandpa.
but this helps. You know what I'm saying? This does help for working on micros. And believe me, I use them all the time. Don't be ashamed. Get it. You know, you're the fool if you're not wearing them. You know what I
Right.
mean? You need them. You know, you're the fool because you're struggling trying to do something that you shouldn't have to struggle for. But otherwise, I would say buy all your parts at one time and do some research, you know, and don't try to run balls out right off the bat. But like he said, like Aaron said, the Baby Hawk R is a great ship to start off with. I kind of had an idea what the Baby Hawk R was going to be, so I kind of built it prior to the Baby Hawk R coming out. And one of the things, like Aaron was saying too, is that we need to do some type of competition across the United States for the Baby Hawk size. I mean, Baby Hawk R size. I mean, Emax. Listen, hey Emax, hey Brandon, hey Brandon, you listening? It's time to get that race. Hey, Mr. French over at Fat Sharks with the new ship. You know, all of you guys out there, you know, if you set up a competition, your company sets up a competition, you have the customers. You have them already. All you got to do is say, the only way you're going to get into this competition is to buy one of our ships. As long as you keep that word and say you pull one pilot out of every region, you make them fight it out in their region, and then that pilot wins a chance to go and fly with the top 10 pilots from the top 10 regions across the world, and you pay for that. I bet you wouldn't be able to keep nothing on the damn show. You know what I mean? Because people want to do stuff like that. The Baby Hawk R is a beautiful flying ship when you turn it down a little bit and you just fly it. You know, it's not. I wouldn't say it's one of those few. Once you put it on 4S, it's nuts. You know, but for 3S, you could race that indoors pretty much anywhere. We do in a small warehouse here in Portland. Me and a couple of guys, we got a little indoor warehouse. We race the Baby Hawk, and they're flying Baby Hawk R's indoors on 3S. And then the new guys are flying the Baby Hawk R indoors on 2S, you know, until they get comfortable. And then okay, I got it. I figured it's all tuned up. And then surprisingly, if you tune a ship for 2S, when you go to 3S, it's not that bad of a jump. You know what I mean? As the ship is not as detuned as you would think it is. Now, when you go from 3S to 4S, there's a little something in there does change. I don't know what it is, but it's a little. You got to turn it down a little bit more. You know, and I'm on my 4S ships. I'm running. My D term is 15, 10 and 15, 10 on the roll and 15 on the pitch and 15 on the yaw. That's where mine is, and I think I dropped the P down by 7 points or something like that. So it's real down low, but on 4S you don't need a lot of, gyro. They overwork themselves, and I do put the high DMAG on, just to give me a little cleaner run.
What is that?
The DMAG.
Yeah.
That's that. Remember when we used to have desyncs?
Yeah.
Yeah, you had low DMAG for low motors at low kV.
Okay.
And could possibly go on a desync, and desync. I've had that issue, so it's just somewhere I go first, and then if things, I'll go back down. I go to low if the ship don't clean up or it starts, misresponding, or like I've had motors actually go out of sync a couple of times. Running them, when you run them, everything's too high. You know what I mean? So
and you're doing that in what, BL Heli Suite?
Yeah, in the suite. I'll run high DMAG for high kV motors, usually for high kV. And once you start, I consider 4S making a 6,000 kV motor a little high kV.
Yeah.
just trying to give myself a little leeway.
Just won't stop. No,
I like speed, man. I mean, that's
I
the
know
thing.
that. I know that.
I know you know that. I'm the dude that gets the ticket for doing 100 miles an hour. I'm the dude. The police has chased 4 counties, and I got home the next morning, and the police was sitting in the driveway. You know what I mean? I'm that guy. I've had 2 sheriff officers drive from Florence, Oregon, to come and warn me about coming through their town at 130 miles an hour. So I mean, I admit it, but I didn't do it.
No, you're guilty already. They're coming for you right now. I'm collecting the reward money. What are you talking about? Okay, so obviously there's actually a lot of choices. I agree with you. I've been actually trying to, I don't know, I've been going back and forth on whether or not to build the next long range ship or to go with the micros, because like they're polar opposites, but they have different uses, right? The thing about the micros is that I travel a lot, right? And like if you can get yourself a small controller and like 1 to 2 3-inch micros, they're so easy to travel with. That's what I like. You practically can throw it into almost any knapsack, and it's like
20 batteries fit in a.
You're crazy. There's nobody that travels with 20 Okay, never mind. There is actually, but most people don't travel with 20 batteries.
20, I'm serious, but that's what I'm saying. Like 20 batteries, 20 of these right here. These graphene 650s, 4S 650s. 20 of these fit in a shaving cream box. I mean bag. Dude, like,
shaving cream in there, all right.
Yeah, I mean, like I show up somewhere and everybody's got this huge bag with this big old, 2 or 3 big quads on. I come with that little bitty bag, and they're like, "Where's your radio?" I'm like, "Oh, let me go in the car. I get my radio." Well, you need a case for your radio. I'm like, "Yeah," but like open up and they go, "Wow, there's 3 ships in there," and there's batteries for days, like no chargers, no ISD, That's one of the things I like about this is the cost difference has made a big difference for me.
Definitely. And that's what we're going to wrap up with, is we're going to talk about costs. And that's one of the fundamental reasons why I think this has a better shot of becoming like the next big thing, is because instead of, going out and buying clone shit, which you shouldn't do. Sorry, I cussed. Family friendly show. Elvin, stop cussing. I think actually building like 2.5-inch ships, just because for the cost factor, is something that should be highly encouraged, especially for people that are building. The only problem is that they're so hard to build. TBS needs to come out with one of their power cubes that is built for a micro, because they're so easy to build because everything's plug and play. But that's a different problem. But on average, Aaron, how much do you spend on one of your quads?
I think this, for me, about 170, 175, somewhere around there. You can buy the Baby Hawks, 140 if you buy ready to run.
Look at that. That's such a good price.
It is. And I mean, and you're getting good components. That's the thing. You're not buying it and then having to change out the camera, change out this and that. I mean, that's a race.
Like we had to do with the original Baby Hawk.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, yeah, so anywhere you're looking at 140 to 170, and then your batteries are $10 to $15. That's kind of a good price range, whether you're running 2S or 3S. If you're gonna run 4S, they may be a little bit more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sure. And then in our props, our props are $3 or $4 for 8. Depending on which one you go with and stuff like that. So yeah, props are about half as much, and so yeah, it definitely can be cheaper.
I agree. I mean, like a sub $200 minus, you have to buy obviously your radio and your goggles. Goggles nowadays under 275 even like will get you a decent starter pair of goggles. Your radio
Right.
about $100. Get a Free Sky, FR Sky around there. You'll get a good
EQX.
Yeah, you'll get a good radio. So like, I don't know, like just under $400, and you'll get a really good setup that isn't from Banggood. That like literally nobody in this community will tell you how to be able to tune it because they just don't know what the heck you bought. This is a
Right.
significantly better option. It's stuff that people are going to be like, oh yeah, I recognize this stuff. I can help you out. So like, definitely go look at this route if you're starting off and you don't want to, buy something from. Just fair advice: don't buy stuff from Banggood. Don't buy, don't buy those things. They'll run. They will run. I will say they will run, but unfortunately, nobody will be able to help you when it stops running because nobody
Right.
cares. Elvin,
Because
Right.
that's important. You do need somebody to help you when there's an issue, because the less your stuff is known for, the more issues you're probably going to have. I would say, for me, there's in this market, there's a couple of different flight controller combos and this, that, and the other, and the Emax stack, the HGLRC stack. There's an omnibus stack, where you pair it up like on this thing. I got an omnibus F4 and an Ori 25 peak amp, ESC 4-in-1 ESC, and I'm using that Wolf Q7 stack VTX, and everything works really well, and it's really powerful, and it's really clean, and it's light, and things get a little warm. You know what I mean? Even though they run well, it gets a little warm. You don't want to be sitting on the deck for 5 minutes, waiting for a race to start, with this thing.
Yep.
I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna plug it in when we're about to race. I'll be happy to start later than everybody else.
Yep.
you don't want to fry your stuff from baking
Right.
out
Yeah,
there.
I mean, I would rather start later than not take off. So,
Right.
but in this case, I don't have. I like the prices too. Like years ago, if you wanted to buy a 4-in-1, or last year, if you wanted to buy a 4-in-1 that was worth a damn, it would cost you $65-$70. And there's still some of those out there today. This thing only cost me $26.
Mm-hmm.
For a 4-in-1. I'm happy about that. And then if you buy it with the stack, the Emax stack is 45, and that's 15 amps peak. That's plenty for an 1106. It's not enough for a 16. It's not enough for a 13 or a 1407, but it's enough for that,
Mm-hmm.
and you can run 4S on that, and you still got plenty of leeway. So, you just have to pick which route you want to go. If you want to build an overkill ship, if you tend to blow up stuff, because you tend to leave the throttle on and you go in, then you might need a little bit bigger stack. But just remember that you're going to cost yourself over the long run of just not being careless instead of being careful.
Definitely. And it's one of those things where, actually, you know what? I want to answer or give you my opinion on the race. I think you guys are better off with setting up a sub 3-inch UTT tracks and then letting people compete on that. And then whoever the top people are, having them come in and compete in a final race or something like that. Because like UTT tracks are, they're easier to set up. They're much easier to show that you're fast in, and you don't have to get a whole bunch of people together all at once at the same time. That's my opinion on it. But I think
that's a good point. And
Yep.
I actually had the Memphis guys. They got a group there, and they're doing the micro thing as well. And they've contacted me this week about, hey, let's put together a micro UTT, and so we can start getting a baseline for our testing and what props and motors and batteries and stuff are working. And I was like, that's a great idea. So hopefully MultiGP will do that. But, I mean, their hands are they're so full with 5-inch and all that stuff like that. I mean, we're going to have to probably step up and set up something, at least unofficially, for us to just be able to say, hey, here's the course. Let's use this until there's something better. And so we can kind of, do exactly what you're saying. That's a great idea.
No, you got to start the groundwork somewhere, and hey, build your own community. Jesse P, he did it, right? The Tiny Whoop community is huge. You can be the next one to build on top of that. Or, I don't know, just give Jesse a call. He's always up for new ideas. He's always doing something crazy. But yeah, I totally agree. I think there's actually a good community to be built from this. And people will love it, especially even in the winter or even in the summertime, people will still continue to race indoors because you don't have to deal with wind, rain, people,
heat,
yeah,
air conditioning.
And I don't know if you guys know, most of you guys out there in your communities, I'll speak from my experience with the community is you can go to the high school, your local high school, and request the chance to use the gym. If you show that everybody's got AMA, some schools will let you in. If you go through now, if you go some places like here, you have to go and fill out insurance and all of this other paperwork. It's $50 an hour for the gym. It may not be feasible, but for you areas outside of the city, you know what I mean? Like the suburbs, like here out in Eagle Creek, there's a gym that couple of the guys that live in that area go fly in during the winter, and they don't even charge them anything because the gym's already open for some community thing, and no one's ever using it. So they have that opportunity, so they're happy with that usage. But by my house, I have to pay $75 to get in the gym per hour, and then if I'm there for more than 2 hours, I got to pay $75 for the dude to turn the lights on and off. It's like, damn, but you just got to go talk to somebody, go find out, because you go to the school, and hopefully you got a good rapport with them, and they may just let you in to do that, and you just got to keep the size of the ship down. I know it's really tempting to fly 5-inch in a gym, and I've done it, and smack the walls, and we hit the gym, the bleachers and stuff like that, and it's fun to laugh at, but really it doesn't make us look good. You know what I mean? You come in and you just start destroying stuff, and parts are flying everywhere, and people that don't look at you like you look respectable or professional. So I would say, try to have fun everywhere you go, but remember there's fun and safety to be had at the same time.
Definitely. Yep. Well, there you go. I think I'm out of questions for the micro stuff. Aaron, do you have any final thoughts to add for the micro world?
No, I'm glad with the direction it's headed technology-wise, and that we've had a huge jump forward with some of the manufacturers getting in on good ready to runs this year. So I'm looking forward to what 2018 has for us, and I look forward to being out there racing with other micro pilots and not just me against the 5-inch guys. So just saying thanks.
Yep. Definitely love to have you on, and I'm sure we'll be tracking your efforts in 2018 because we're going to be interested. And I have a feeling a lot of people are going to move to 4-inch quads too, because the 4-inch quads, I don't think there's anything like to lose to go down an inch You gain a little bit more smaller. You spend less on your batteries. I saw some wickedly fast 4-inches this year, and they were just as fast as the 5-inches. So we might see a reduction in 5-inches even from just that, but we'll see. The trends are kind of hard to predict right now because the thing is that people have managed to squeak out more out of the 5-inch frame than I ever expected. Like we're hitting close to 100 miles an hour based on the motors that we're getting, ESCs, and it's like I think we'll break 100 miles an hour this year on 4S 5-inch quads, and it's going to be like that's just amazing. I just couldn't fathom that.
We're already past that though.
I'm talking about like in common. I'm talking about everybody can do it. I'm not talking.
Well, I mean, didn't Barlow put out a video of a quad doing 130 something consistent? 20, I think it was 2206 motor, 2500 kV, something like that on 4S, something like that. I can't remember now. I can go research it.
Go research it, but I have a hard time believing that. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you.
He's got a video.
I'm just saying.
He's a reputable guy.
I'm not saying he didn't do it. Okay, all I'm saying it's hard to replicate because if it was that easy to replicate, there would be more than just him with that video. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, I know at least 4 guys here that would have easily replicated him. I have not seen it yet. Okay, I've seen.
I can tell you there's something though. It's different driving 134 miles an hour. You know what I mean? It's not. You know what I mean? You can call yourself fast and be driving 90 miles an hour, and then you get in a car that you can do 130, and you're like, oh, jeez, I gotta back off coming around that corner. And that's what I'm saying. It takes a different kind of pilot. Sometimes you can't buy a Ferrari and go take it down to PIR and run the little circle course, right? You're never going to utilize a car for what it is, and just because it's capable of doing 190 miles an hour doesn't mean you're going to get to 190 miles an hour on that track. You might only see 90, you know what I mean? And the rest of that is all wasted,
All I'm saying is there's plenty of big fields everywhere, and it's not like we lack the room to try to get up to a high speed and put a YouTube video on. But you know what? I could be wrong. You could be right. Everybody could have 100-mile-an-hour quads right now.
No,
we're moving on because we're already past an hour.
Wait.
Nope, too late. Come on. All right.
Real quick. I want to say this about Ford.
There it goes again. Sorry.
No biggie. I want to say this about 4-inch right now.
4-inch, go.
4-inch quads. If you go to the biggest problem I had with going to a 4-inch was the size of the motor. We're using 2205s, 2204 motors on 4 inches. Last year I saw a guy flying a 2006 motor on a 4-inch. That was insane. I believe I've said this before that I believe that certain motors are proper for certain size ships, and you have to maximize that motor with the prop. That's why we go through this prop search, and I believe the 2006 is the proper motor for a 4-inch. It gives it enough power, enough stator to create the power, and enough mass to dissipate the heat, and that's what's needed. Just like on my 3-inch, the 1606 is enough power, enough stator to create the 390 watts, and it's enough mass to dissipate the heat so that when it comes down, it's hot, but it's not hot to the touch. You know what I mean? You can grab hold and you go, wow, that's hot, but you're not going, ow, 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 So and on the 1106 is the right motor for a 2.5-inch ship because It's the right size of stator to create that 150 watts. But it's also the same mass. It's got the mass to dissipate the heat. And that's what we need to be worrying about. And that's why these things are such great combinations. You know, like originally we had the 1806 motor. Remember the 1806? That was a really powerful motor for its size, but it couldn't take that abuse long term because it didn't have enough mass to dissipate the heat.
Well, let me ask you this, and I know we're up against it, but real quick, since MultiGP announced today that they're going to go open cell count, 2 minutes, do you think that decision will kill anything under 5-inch for racing? And I'm not talking about micros. I'm talking about your 3 or 4-inch that can compete last year now can't, because now you're building your 5.5-inch quads that are 6S. And I mean, there's a whole lot of difference now where before it wasn't. So, what's your opinion on that?
You want to go first, Evan, or should I?
I'll go real quick. I think here's my thing on 6S. 6S. If you want to go fast, 6S. You want to go faster, 8S. You know what I'm saying? The problem is that the faster you're capable of going doesn't mean that you're going to clear the track. That's the problem. The faster you're capable to fly doesn't mean that you can fly on that track. And tracks mean that some tracks are meant for you to fly fast, some tracks are meant for you to fly slow, and some tracks are an intricate difference. I mean, a combination of the both. And everybody tries to build a track that you can go fast a little bit, and then there's a little bit of technical. And I call them class 1, class 2, and class 3 technicalities, where the spiral that was in the big race at Sebring, that was a class 3 because you had to be consistent throughout the whole time around those 4 gates, right? Mm-hmm. And from the top down all the way to the bottom, your consistency was all the way through the whole process. That's how you maintain a solid time. If you class 2 was just the transition between the gravity gate. That was the two gravity gates. That's a class 2. And then the class 1 was just a transition between the going through the gates and around that what do you call it? The tower, right? Thing. And so each track is designed for that, and depending on the type of track, you have different class. You won't be able to fly a 6-inch on, say, like that track, that indoor, that the Zippos track.
Right.
You're never going to fly a 6-inch on that because you can't. You see what I'm saying? So I think track is going to dictate whether or not a 6-inch, a 6S ship.
Well, you're right, but don't you think that now what we're seeing is the quads are dictating what tracks are being built? You're not seeing a Zippo track anymore. You're seeing everybody wants to go big. Well, hey, my quad can go fast. Build me a track that I can fly it on. And I personally prefer a smaller, not an obstacle course. I want flow, but I want a smaller course, more action-packed. I want to see several people in 2 minutes. I don't want to just see open track in front of me. In a bigger track, I see everybody at the start, and I don't see anybody again, and that's not racing to me. And so that's the only thing I'm afraid of. I agree with the decision to go open cell count. I just don't know what that will do to the other. Granted, there's not many people that were trying to fly a 4-inch or a 3-inch in an open class. I get that. But I think now there's even more of a need. Let's have an open class, whatever we're going to call that, and then let's have something else for the smaller, for whatever that is. But
I agree on that point. I do agree that we do need the smaller, like me and why we talk about this all the time on the show is that there's so many pilots, and not enough classification, right? There's not enough categories. There might be classification 3S, 4S, but there's not enough racing categories. There's indoor tracks, there's outdoor tracks, there's long run tracks, there's short tracks. there's got to be more of that development than just that's your track. Come to this race and we're going to have this track. There's going to have to be, come to this race. And on our micro track, we're going to run UTT track number 2 for micros. And and while you're there, you can race, if you want to, you can race in the 5-inch department, and we're going to have the UTT track 5, and then if you want to run open class or the X class or whatever, ship you decide to run, whatever size it is, they're going to have a race or a track for that ship, so that you can freely run the hell out of your batteries, right? Because that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to go as fast as we can until batteries start catching on fire again.
So here's my opinions on this. Obviously the community has been extremely vocal about times and also about spec. What I would suggest is have multi-GP go back to the roots and have this as one of the years to let the chapters and the people freely experiment, but also take amazingly good notes to try to figure out exactly where this sport needs to go. Because right now, what I would predict is that people that move up to 6S, the pros are going to do it really well because they've been doing it at DRL, but you're not going to see a huge speed increase from them because they understand when they move up to 6S, they're looking for that efficiency. They're looking for that, you know what? I don't need to worry about that 2 minutes because my quad can fly for 4 minutes, right? So when I need that power, it's always going to be there. When I need to hold back, I know how to do that because my quad's efficient. I can use the entire spectrum of my throttle. I have the low end for technical stuff, but when I need that power, I can bump it up and my quad's going to be there for me. So like the pro guys, 6S, they're going to knock it out of the park. And that's what's going to drive a lot of the newbies to think, oh, I need 6S, except they're going to do it wrong. I know they're going to do it wrong because they're going to put high KV, high cell, and what they're going to find out is they're going to burn through a ton of equipment, okay?
Right.
So they're going to learn the hard way because I have been doing 6 cells for about 2 years now. You can burn through batteries. You can burn through anything. Okay, I've even burned through carbon fiber. The motors got so hot, it burned through the carbon fiber. It is possible. Okay, I'm just telling you that you can put motors on there that get so hot, the motors will survive. Your carbon fiber will not. It is absolutely possible.
He basically heated his carbon up so bad that it burned off all the epoxy.
Yes, you can do this. I am living proof you can do this. By the way, those motors still work. They are the most noisiest motors you will ever find, but they still work. They still do work.
What motors are they? Why?
They're like 2840s or something like that. They're huge motors. But you know what? The Cobra motors, they're really great motors. But anyways, my prediction is that I don't think the people, the masses will find 6S to be a great benefit because you got to remember, as you move up in cells, you're also moving up in costs in untested components. So tuning issues. You are correct on this.
Oscillation at a 6S is a son of a bitch.
I have a feeling that the people that remain disciplined, even in the 3-inch category, will still outbeat the 6S guys because they just don't know what they're doing. Okay, you're not going to beat the pros though. The pros are going to really run away with 6S quads because they just know what they're doing. I think a lot of them actually will move to 5S because
5S
of what
the way I think.
Well, it's more reliable for the components that are currently out there. I think 6S is still sketchy. Plus, you got to remember.
Hey, my power cube works.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's also a pain to charge, by the way, because a lot of your chargers, they're not that great at charging 6S. I can tell you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Let me tell you, okay? You're going to have to buy some more expensive chargers.
Better chargers.
A lot better chargers. So, in your case...
the 6S batteries you're using as power packs to charge batteries won't work in it.
in your case, Aaron, I believe you're still going to be very competitive this year, even against the Success guys. Especially, I know for a fact that Success racing lipos, they don't really exist because you can easily puff those. That experience, that I can tell. So I will say, though, this will push vendors to building more hardened equipment for Success, which will be a great game for us in the long run. So 2018, I don't think you have a problem to worry about. 2019, that's the year you probably will find the gap jump, unless, of course, we start seeing better advancements in lighter motors for the micro guys, which, I mean, you said it yourself, 6 months ago, we were like, and now we're like,
and Sunny Sky's got some new motors out I want to try that feel like the Brother Hobbies, where they're super, they got the magnets that just kind of click, and
yep.
Yes, I hear they're awesome. I haven't tried any yet because I got a bunch of Emax ones, but I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way and that's what makes the hobby so fun, right? Is, I mean, it's moving so fast, and the technology and the things to try, even if you don't try all the latest and greatest, if you just try once a month to upgrade your stuff, you're taking a huge leap forward in technology and performance. So yeah, no telling what next year's going to look like.
Yep, but
yeah,
I will
go ahead.
I will say, though, in my opinion, what I would like to see is I would like what Elvin was saying. We have different races for different people. I like that idea. What I'm hoping to see is actually having multiple multi-GP chapters in the same region running events at the same time, to where a pilot cannot physically go to both events. He's going to have to specialize, right? And this will create a better reason for more people to join, because they don't feel like, if I go to this event, I'm just going to go to people that have been doing it for 3 years, and I won't have a chance, right? But if you create another chapter that's running it, it's like, what, this one just started up. Everybody's new. They're friendly. I'm going to go to that one because all of the pro guys, they go to this one over here. And then all of a sudden, you organically create another racing class. That's what I'm hoping will happen, is to have multiple chapters running at the same time, thereby increasing our community just organically, because there's just more things going on at the same time. And then maybe they can come together, hold one big race. Because, at a certain point, like some of the chapters over here, once you get 40 pilots together, it is really hard to to have a fun time, because things have to move, because otherwise you'll be there for 16 hours, right?
Some people get a little pissy.
You need to be on it, okay? You're either on the race line or we're kicking your ass out because we got to get going, okay?
Right.
So I think some of the fun factor starts to die. I think a lot of the regions where they're hitting 40 plus, multi-GP needs to say, we need another chapter running, reduce that down to 20. Yeah, it splits the community, but they're still doing the same thing. And then hopefully that get both of them up to 40, whereby it would help our community. That's my opinion on that. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Because that's what I'm kind of hoping it happens, is that it grows organically to where other classes start growing into the chapters.
Well, I mean, I help run a chapter here in Nashville with Matt Bennett, and we do the Music City Multi-Rotor Club, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're really the only guys here in Middle Tennessee, but then you've got another very strong club in Memphis, and then you've got one in Knoxville, and there's nowhere really in between. And where I'm passionate and excited about the micros, would I love to build a micro track specific and have 20 guys show up that we're only racing micros, but over there, 30 miles away on Sundays, you can go race your 5-inch on a 5-inch Big O track, whatever, and be more specific and cater those guys. Sure, it's not there yet. Right now, we're looking at running 2 classes. We'll have an open class and a micro class, and we just double our entry, where before all we had was open class. And now, because we're going to have the 2 classes and everybody runs both, now you get more track time. If a vehicle or a ship breaks, then you've got your other one you can fly. But but I really like that idea. But I know in our area we got diehard racers that are out of town traveling, and then you got the new guys that show up and see that. I'm like, I can't do that, and they get intimidated and they don't do. So I'm really hoping for us this year, having a micro class that can kind of get new guys into it, and then whether they go to 5-inch or just stay there, it gives them a way in without seeing your Alexes and Evans and be like, no, man, I can't do that.
It's tough, man, because I talk to the new guys and they just look at that and they do get intimidated, you know. And it's like the easiest way to grow multi-GP or this drone racing thing is to not have those guys there. I don't want to be mean about it, okay? But literally, like, the easiest way to grow a community is to have all of them be new. It really is like that. Elvin, last thoughts, and then I'm cutting you off. You got
wait,
10 minutes.
Wait.
10 minutes.
Okay,
That's it.
10
I'm
minutes,
timing
10
you.
minutes, 10 minutes,
Okay, it's
10
time.
minutes.
All right. Have a good one. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so like I agree. We need to do something about this multi GP rule, right? Like this is ridiculous. Tiny Whoop class is prop limit is 31 millimeters, 35 gram max. Okay, I get that. Okay, micro size. What the hell is a micro? You know what I mean? We need to reclassify this micro class. I mean, that's not big enough. That's what I'm seeing. It's just not big enough. I mean, anyway. Hey, multi GP, get your shit together. This is ridiculous. I mean, our ships as it is, the 5-inch is not really a mini. Okay, it's not really a mini. I don't know what you think a mini is, but if an X class is 1,000 millimeters, the next class down is not mini. It's medium. Where's that
medium
class?
quads, they don't sound good. I'm sorry. Nobody's going to buy that one.
Yeah, they fly 8-inch props and they go when they make a turn. I know because I used to fly it. Anyway, but anyway, man, I'm just having some fun, man. I really appreciate you coming on here, Aaron, and hanging out and talking with us about 3-inchers and 2.5-inch ships, and you are very competitive in your flying of a 2.5-inch ship, and you've been competitive, and I don't think you are going to be any less competitive this coming year. I think what it's going to do is it's going to give you more exposure because there's going to be a lot more people hitting that wall, you know, finding that limit of what a 6S is capable of doing, and how much weight you're tossing around does matter when you're trying to make tight corners and tight turns. So I think you're going to be fine. I believe the expansion of the sport is capable, but I see that this short period of time that we're indoors, we get this right at the surge of the winter, we get a little explosion of growth. And then somewhere around Christmas, we get another little explosion of growth, right? And then it kind of tapers down until we get the spring. And then the outdoor boys go nuts again, right? So I think if we utilize this time now, we benefit, right? Because we actually have the opportunity, like you and me, you have the skills to see what things are capable of. You also have the skills to push it to that limit. And I believe that you are just starting to push it. You know what I mean? You like your last big race, you came in third, right? Mm-hmm. And you weren't flying with slouch pilots. You know what I mean? You and other pilots say that they've gotten better because they're racing with you. I wanted to tell you that. You know, there's a couple of young pilots that say if it wasn't for you, they wouldn't be in the position they are as pilots and competitiveness. So I appreciate that. That's something that.
There's that clock again.
Yeah, your clock agrees with you. Your clock agrees with you.
And so I would say you just keep doing what you're doing. I'm sure we're gonna, there's gonna be another prop out there. I mean, I believe the Gym Fam 2540 prop is the smackdown right now for the 2.5-inch. But I hear that there is a racecraft prop coming and another prop coming,
The
So,
rumor mills is thick with Elvin.
I know, but dude, I've been like, I went to a couple of manufacturers and said, hey, can you do something? I mean, I really, I just need a prop. Even if it looked like the prop from 3 years ago, I just need a 2.5-inch version of that,
Mm-hmm.
That's just make that, I don't care if it looked like bulldozers from 3 years ago. Let me put it on my damn 2.5 inch, because at that time that prop did have a benefit. If you put it on the right motor, that prop was beneficial. So I believe that's where we need to go. It's just we need to keep figuring out what's the best to run and let time move things forward. I believe that these guys are going to, jump on the bandwagon and then they're going to jump back. That's like why I said, running success is a bitch.
It is a pain. By the way, MultiGP, they're doing a great job, and I hope they learn a lot from this year by going open battery spec, because I think they will, and I think it'll push a lot of components forward, so I'm looking forward to that. I still think we need longer heat ties. You know this, Aaron. We run 2.5 minute heats up here because we don't take we don't like short heats up here.
I don't like 2 minute heat.
We're antisocial up here or something. Okay, that's it.
Like 2 minute.
But 2 minute heats is actually not that bad. What I would hope to see this year, my final thoughts, and then we're ending this, is I want to see a class where it isn't about you get to use full throttle all the time. You actively have to go slower because if you go full throttle for that entire whatever seconds, your ship will drop out of the air because you will be on empty. You have to strategically know when you want to go fast to win that race. I want to see that type of racing because that's true strategy that isn't just skill-based. That's, I hope, the next level of multi-GP racing, because the kids are taking over because it's all about reflex. I'm sorry, that's genetics, that's evolution. You're never going to beat that. The only way to increase, the complexity level, to let the veterans come back in, is to, force strategy into the racing. And at this point, that's fuel management. That's my last thought. Because you got to do something. You can't rely on building more complex tracks because then everybody just crashes out. That's not fun either.
Right, absolutely.
All right, Aaron, social media accounts. Where can people reach you to bug you about your micros?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram mostly. I stay off Facebook, but Bumpy FPV on Instagram, or I got a YouTube channel, Bumpy or Drake 960. You can also search Bumpy FPV. It'll pull it up. And I don't do a lot of editing. I just throw up some DVR once in a while from a race because I just don't have time to edit. But that's where I'm at. If you need to get a hold of me or want to ask any questions, I'm there. All
right. Multi-GP chapter that you help with or you're at?
Yeah, that's the Music City Multi-Rotor Club here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I think we're 140-ish members strong. And obviously they don't all show up at the same time. But that's who we have that gets the emails when we have an event. So, yeah, if you're in the area, come out. We have a good time and a bunch of good guys. And a shout out to Matt Bennett, who kind of started the whole thing and has kind of let me help out lately. I appreciate that. And shout out to Blake and Jay and Jordan and Alex, like Oliver said, and all those guys I race with every week.
I think I know most of those guys. And, I definitely seen Bennett around a few times.
Yep.
Don't tell him I said that. Okay, we are out. Thank you so much for joining us, Aaron. We appreciate wasting 2 hours of your time. I try to keep it around an hour, and Elvin refuses to let me do that.
It was fun.
All right, we're out.